Many thanks again for rejoining me on the program this morning on ITV. We call it TMI. And I have with me here an erudite civil society activist in the country. He is Executive Director, Foundation for Good Governance and Social Change. A public affairs commentator and analyst, is also a lawyer. I'd like to thank very especially Comrade Austin Osakwe. Comrade, many thanks for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much. Good morning, viewers.
Well, as is always the case, on the road to 2019, a lot is happening. But today on the show, we just want to look at some very salient issues as it relates to the 2019 elections. Yes, as is always the case, you find people talking. Sometimes people just talk, not because they really have an understanding of what the issues are, maybe because that's the position of the party, or maybe this is what they have as a belief system, and they stick to it, irrespective of what the other person is saying, no matter how genuine or reasonable or more intelligent that opinion seems to be. They stick to the grounds, and that has its own way of affecting the polity. But today on the show, we're looking at the card reader, 2019 election and its credibility against the background of the role it played in 2015 or didn't play in 2015 if the outcomes in court where some of those elections were challenged are anything to go by. And all of these will form part of our discussion. And then the raging issue of some clergy, some religious leaders bringing their spiritual capacity or ability to bear in the polls, particularly with the comments and statements that are coming from them. Comrade, once again, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Well, let's start off with the card reader. 2019 was the first time the card reader was introduced into the Nigerian electoral process. Arising from how that election went, did the card reader make any impact? Did it make any improvement in that election?
Yeah, I think it did, in spite of the obvious lapses. You see, the sanctity of the ballot box is all about the credibility of the electoral process. We want elections to be free, but even more so, we want it to be seen to be free and fair. And it begins from registration of voters. And then, of course, ensuring that those who have registered to vote have their voter's card. When you do claims and objections, those who had registered whose names did not reflect, such amendments will be made. The essence of the introduction of the card reader was to ensure that first and foremost, the voters' cards being presented at the polling units are voters' cards emanating from the Independent National Electoral Commission, in which case only those who duly registered would be voting. Don't forget that when that election drew near, in the heat of the campaigns, we began to hear things like cloning of voters' cards. Okay. So what that meant was that if we didn't take that seriously, we have a situation where a lot of persons who didn't register, but who were armed with voters' cards, could go to vote. Some may even be people from outside this country. Okay. So the card reader ensured, number one, that the person holding this voter's card owned it, and it was issued to him by the Independent National Electoral Commission. So what happened at the polling unit was that you tendered your voter's card. It passed through a due diligence test with the card reader reading not just the card, but the identity of the holder of that card. Because that will guarantee, to a very large extent, the credibility of the process. Okay. So to that extent, the card reader introduction was innovative and was geared towards ensuring free and fair elections. However, what we found during elections was that, and INEC, I think, knew that there were likely going to be shortcomings because they did some test runs, and the test run showed that the card reader was dependent on several other factors for it to achieve the purpose for which it was introduced. Number one was that we needed a situation where there's ready power supply to keep boosting the power. That was one. Two, whether having worked for hours, the card reader will still continue to work at the same rate of efficiency. What we found during the elections was that the card reader worked to a certain level and packed up. That presented its own challenges. The second was that the card reader was refusing to read the fingerprints of persons who we knew certainly would have registered. For instance, the former president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria battled to get his fingerprint read by the card reader. So these were challenges. To get around this, the Independent National Electoral Commission now gave a condition. And if the card reader could not read the fingerprint of the holder of that card, and the presiding officer was convinced that the card actually belonged to the holder, he would be issued an incidence form. This is what the hula baloo, the brouhaha, is all about. Yeah. We had situations where incident forms were issued at will, some allegedly to underage voters. So what that meant was that everybody could walk up to the polling unit, present a card, which in any case would not be read by the card reader.
It becomes a ground to get incidence form.
The person would insist on, because we're talking about franchise here, insist on, being able to vote because that was his right.
Exercise his franchise.
Exactly. So, incidence card forms were issued. We have seen statistics that show that in Kano State alone, we had over 1 million of such incident cards issued. In Katsina and a few other states, far in excess of 500,000. So you are asking yourself, a situation where in a state, those who eventually voted, instead of card reader accounting for the majority of such votes, incidence forms were accounting for majority of such votes, which puts a question mark on the original purpose for which the card readers were introduced. Of course, all over the world, you do not dump good technology simply because there are challenges. One would expect that between the last election and this imminent one, the INEC would have reached out to experts to improve on the efficiency and efficacy of the card reader. So it's incumbent on INEC to let Nigerians know. First, these challenges are there. We knew that they were always going to be there.
We're looking at the major fallout of the election. Was when the results were now tested in courts of competent jurisdiction, particularly with the election tribunal. And in most cases, the verdict took the same direction of the Constitution or the Electoral Act not recognizing the card reader.
Yes, because you see, that's why the present back and forth in the National Assembly is crucial. The Electoral Act must, by all intents and purposes, be in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. Don't forget that the Constitution is a grown norm. Every other law made in this country must substantially comply with the provisions of the Constitution. What the National Assembly is attempting to do is to give legal bites. The Electoral Act has what it calls practices, which basically may not really be law, because the law has already given power to the Independent National Electoral Commission to evolve such rules and regulations that would help it organize elections. What I think the National Assembly wants to do is to give legal bite to the provisions of the Electoral Act and go further to make it compulsory that, number one, the card reader is identified as the only means for certifying who votes or not, which will effectively eliminate the incidence form. That's one. Two, to ensure that as voting is on, the results are immediately announced electronically. So that wherever you are, we are getting results instead of having to wait and go through that whole hog of people coming to sit and they are waiting for collation officers to bring results and all. So we're able to know who has gone ahead. And then what is transmitted from the polling unit aligns with what is transmitted at the local government unit and again at the state level collation. So, but what we have found, again, through elections, from one election to another, is that what you have at the polling unit allegedly is different from what turns up at the local government and then again at the state collation center. So for me, the intent of the law is noble. It's noble in the sense that it is in our collective interests to have free and fair elections. Because for me, the greatest form of corruption really is electoral corruption.
Okay.
Because there's nothing as bad as when we dubiously bring people who do not have the mandate of the people to come and preside over their affairs and determine the manner in which their resources are used, whether for their purpose or not. So we need to get it right at the level of throwing up leaders. There's something about credibility, about legitimacy. If the people are convinced that the person who is there is the one they have put there, at least majority have put there, it fosters easier working relationship and understanding on the side of the people. There's nothing as bad for government as when from day one the people look at those who call themselves leaders with some form of suspicion. There's a credibility problem. Okay. There's a legitimacy issue. So we must get the electoral, play very clearly. We must make sure we get it right. We must spell out everything in black and white so that both those who are very knowledgeable and those who are not so knowledgeable understand the process and they go to perform their roles.
So we're not saying without the card reader, 2019 will not be credible against the background of what has happened to the electoral amendment bill.
I must say so. I must say so. The people didn't just wake up and invent the card reader. It was with a view to, and our Nigerians celebrated it. It was with a view to ensuring that votes counted. It was with a view to ensuring the sanctity of the ballot. So the card reader has become a sine qua non in the quest for electoral excellence in this country. So for me, whatever can be done to situate the card reader in the middle of this whole gamut of elections must be done. That's one. Two, I do not see why there is so much cry over the president withholding assent and all of that. Look, it's like this. The president got a mandate from all Nigerians to rule on their behalf, to manage their resources. In the same way, the members of the National Assembly at the upper and lower chamber got the mandate of their people in each of the constituencies to go make law for them. The same laws which are expected to be implemented by Mr. President. So when they make this law, and Mr. President, who by law should assent, refusing such assent, there should be no hue and cry. If the senators or the members of the House of Reps are convinced that the law they have made is one that will be for the benefit of those who sent them there is a provision in the law to override the veto of Mr. President. Get a two-thirds majority of Parliament and override the veto, and it becomes law. Unless they are saying that they are not too sure among themselves that what they have done is in the interest of those who sent them way back from their constituency. That's why there should be hue and cry.
Is there any iota of truth in the thinking that the first salvo fired by the National Assembly in trying to alter the order of election may have sort of triggered this, lack of mutual trust between the executive and the legislature to bring us to where we are now as it relates to the Electoral Amendment Act?
That may be so, but we must go beyond that. The issue of mistrust and distrust between the executive and legislature started from day one. We had a scenario where Mr. President, in the euphoria of I am for everybody and for nobody, declared that he was not interested in who became what in the National Assembly. So he didn't want to influence who became president. He didn't want to influence who became Deputy Senate President. He didn't want to influence who became Speaker of the House of Reps, and so on. So the people went ahead and elected officers. And for the first time in the history of Nigeria politicking, we found the President of the Senate being in the ruling party and the Deputy Senate President being in the opposition party. It had never happened. Especially when, as a matter of fact, the man who eventually became President of Senate was not the natural choice of the leaders of his own party. So there was already mutual mistrust from the very beginning. But to come back to the question you have asked, certainly every politician wants to remain in office. That's what I have seen. I don't know about you. The experience I have had in politics is that the moment somebody tastes of office, he wants to remain there. So you find that they tend to close up the space. Somebody is elected to be in the Senate, and then he does 4 years. Before the 4 years elapses, he's campaigning for another term. He does a second term, it's not enough. He's campaigning for a third. And the other politicians out there are asking, wait a minute, is this your birthright? We also want to go there. So at every level, in fact, if 2 terms, if there was no limit to 2 terms for president and governor, I am sure it would also have been played out at that level. Because to jettison an incumbent from office,
it's difficult.
It's a huge task. So that is it. And then when you now say, let us arrange the order of elections in such a way that there's no bandwagon effect, in such a way that if we do this first, it will translate to this and this and that. The persons who are likely to benefit the least from that arrangement would oppose it at all costs. So I think that, yes, you are right. In spite of the fact that mistrust started from the very beginning, that issue of order of elections is still fundamental. So to the extent that whatever the Senate presents to the presidency right now, the presidency is going to look at it from this way with the same level of suspicion. These people do not mean well for me.
And
so,
that continues.
So that's there.
Now, you talked about the National Assembly exercising their constitutional power to override the president. But some say that's a little bit tricky because of the way the National Assembly is now. How feasible is that against the background we just have 2 months or thereabout to election?
No, you see, for me, well, we'll come back to the time that we have before elections, which makes us, also makes the whole thing suspicious, and which was one of the grounds that those speaking for the president mentioned. But let's look at it this way. Let's remove the element of time. If the Senate, in its wisdom, in its realization that it is making laws on behalf of those who sent them, if that institution is convinced that the law that they have made, devoid of all sentiment, is the best way to go for this country, because ultimately it is their responsibility to make law for the order and good governance of this country. So if they are convinced as an institution, should we impute the fact that, oh, I am not in this party, I am loyal to this party? Yes, you are loyal to your party, but when it comes to making laws, it's not for your party. You are making law for the country.
The entire country.
The entire country. So for me, the fact that there's a provision in the law allowing the Senate to override the president's veto means that it is exercisable and that there's a value to it. So I don't see that as a problem.
Is there any political will? Do you think the political will is there for the current membership of the Senate to be able to do this?
Which brings us back to your opening statement. How that, and I have seen it play out again, how that people elevate party loyalty beyond even common sense, beyond sobriety, beyond morality. You present a very credible argument which, by virtue of the preponderance of evidence, are very sound. There's somebody you have had so much respect for, who you think should see his way clearly through this, tells you, let's not consider it, it's my party. So, party loyalties. It's likely that within that Senate, preparatory to getting to overriding the president's veto, they are likely to be small meetings. The party is likely to call its members, the ones that are still very loyal, and point them in the direction of what they think that law is going to achieve, which may not be in the interest of their party. And whereas all the senators will go there hoping to go and get the tutel to override the president's veto, when the actual voting starts, they will be shocked. That's what happens in this country.
What's your idea?
The second is the issue of timing.
Okay.
Yes, I agree, it's dangerously close to elections. Election is February. Campaigns are already on. Our politicians should not forget that governance is a continuum. Okay?
Yeah.
If, because of time, this amendment cannot be given effect for this election, it doesn't remove the fact that this amendment is a good one. So they can hold on. Let the elections go. There is another National Assembly coming. If they feel persuaded that this is the way to go, they can go with it. But the argument by the presidency that there is some untoward advantage that the opposition seems to want to get from this cannot be waved off with the hand, because elections are really very close. And then how does INEC adjust to this? I expect that by now, INEC must have made elaborate arrangements, first in preparing ballot papers and all of the other things that they need to do. Has INEC been asked how this would affect them if we go? But so these are some of the things that we fail to do in Nigeria.
So one of the reports that I read, INEC has also said that this has been the most challenging election preparation they've ever had. Part of the reason being that as a result of the fallouts of the primaries, even though candidates' lists have been made and all of that, there are still some they are not sure of, because some of the cases are in court.
Oh, yes. And then you hear complaints that in the primaries, certain names were thrown up and celebrated.
Yes.
And then these same persons have heard that the names actually with INEC are a different set of names entirely. So it's the desperation being displayed by politicians.
Does that show that this democratic experiment or experience is in a progressive direction, is actually growing? Because all of these issues, they've been synonymous with our politicking as far as I can remember.
You see, this is where I'm very careful to give a direct answer. A very erudite professor cautioned me a few days ago that I should be careful in the manner in which I tend to give credence to military rule. I apologized, but whether I repented of it is a different matter entirely. Look, I have asked the question. The way we are in this country today, if there is a military coup, God forbid, some people will say, what do you think the people's reaction will be? You don't think they will rush into the streets and celebrate? That's the question. So for me, all the things we see, insecurity, increasing poverty, dilapidation of public infrastructures, and so on, they don't give you hope. They don't point the way to conclude that we have benefited so much from this political experiment. Unless something drastic is done to tinker with the way things are presently going in the politics of this country, we are heading in the wrong direction. Because, sir, politics and the entire gamut of governance is all about one thing: to provide the greatest good for the greatest number. And I look around me in the country, what you hear about insecurity is mind-blowing. It's unprecedented, it's unparalleled. Then poverty is increasing by the day. The figures being churned out do not encourage us. What we see in the marketplace do not encourage us. This is a society in which you go to the market in the morning. By the time you go back in the evening, the prices have gone up within 24 hours. And then look at infrastructure. For the governor of this state to now come out openly to demand that the body that provides electricity for the state should go, what that tells you is that electricity supply, power supply, as far as this state is concerned, has become, I don't know what word to use. People in large communities for months have no light whatsoever. There are those that now get 30 minutes in a day, and yet at the end of the month, when you see the bills they are being given, estimated billing is so on. So you ask yourself, what are we benefiting from politics and governance? That's it for me. But I subscribe to the cliche that the best form of military rule is still worse than the worst form of democracy. But for God's sake, we need to do something about this democracy. And I think it's something we can collectively do. We begin by jettisoning this mundane recourse to party loyalty, so that when we see the truth, we try to turn it upside down.
What is your
we see black and we say it's white.
What's your ideal definition of party loyalty, if that is not party loyalty?
I tell you, the political party is the platform from which we seek political office. The party has a manifesto. I just say that because do the parties really have manifestos right now? What we hear is what the candidate is saying. And a lot of the times, a lot of the candidates don't even know what they are talking about. Because they make promises that are so unreal, so unfounded. So essentially, the party decides on its manifesto. And those who want to seek elective office on the platform of that party religiously pursue the programs of that manifesto. That is hardly there. When you talk about party loyalty, what does party loyalty give us? To help us, we can take a cue from what's happening in other democracies. We have seen situations where members of the Republican Party, for instance, have come out to question the direction that Trump is going. That, for me, shows clearly that, yes, party loyalty is good, but when it comes against what is in the national interest, what is in the interest of the people who have sent you there, you must pick the latter and jettison the former. So it is this very unwieldy manner of trying to juxtapose party loyalty against national unity, national interest, and trying to get a midway. That's where we have found issues. I'm looking forward to a day when, if it is possible to look at the votes that sent a chief executive out of office, we would find that a major quantum of those votes are those from his own party. Because if somebody is not performing, he's not performing. It doesn't matter whether he's my party man or not. If he's not performing, he's not performing. Because ultimately, if we take this non-performance to a certain ridiculous length, it will all crumble on all of us. At that time, party loyalty will no longer be there. In any case, if I am loyal to my party, and that party does not have programs that are geared towards taking care of my children's education, providing facilities in such a way that when I go to the hospital, nobody is going to ask me which party I'm from, but I'm able to get access to good health care. That's what people should be thinking about. Okay. So if a member of my party is going to bring the house down, let him go. That's the issue.
Okay. If you just join us, it's still TMI Monday. My guest has been Comrade Austin Osakwe, the Executive Director, Foundation for Good Governance and Social Change, looking at some of the key issues on the front burner in the build up to the 2019 election. When we return after this short break, we'll be looking at the impact of comments, prophecies, profiling of some religious leaders. That will take the next stage of our discussion with Comrade Austin Osakwe. Well, let's take a couple of promos. We'll be back with you in a moment. Don't go away.
TMI, every opinion counts.
Many thanks again for rejoining us on the program TMI Monday. I've got Comrade Austin Osakwe with me here on the program. Okay, let's look at another very interesting aspect of some of the issues coming to the front burner in the build-up to the 2019. Comments, prophecies, statements coming from religious leaders. Perhaps most notable of them all is the much talked about Reverend Father Baka. I mean, recently, I'm sure you followed up what happened at this Adoration Church. Yes, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, you know, religion. I'm a Christian. But that has nothing to do with religion. Unfortunately, in this country, and perhaps in some other places that I may not have visited, we have deployed religion for the wrong cause. Religion ought to be a tool for mobilizing the people to show love to one another and to embrace community development. That is the purpose, to foster peace. Our Lord Jesus Christ, at a point, was forced to, in answer to a question, to say, give unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and unto God that which is God's. What we have today is that politicians want to go into the church and use it for their purpose. The church wants to come into politics and use it for their purpose. I don't understand. Prepare the people fit for the kingdom. Pure and simple. To do that, you must teach them law for one another. You must teach them to promote peace and good neighborliness. That is the heart. Love thy neighbor as thyself, after you have loved God. I you know, for our politicians, because of the desperation to hold on to power and to get into power for those who are not already there, they are looking for any means, good or bad, to get acceptance, to get legitimacy, to hoodwink the people into believing that black has become white. Otherwise, I do not see why religious people, religious leaders have become the beautiful bride, to the extent that politicians go to visit them at their shrine, at their altars, to seek their support, to try to use them to hoodwink the people to their side. It's now a roll call of going to find acceptance. And that has elevated certain religious leaders to a status of a demigod, that we now find them anointing people for office right in the church. They forget that the congregations that they lead is also a congregation that has members of different political parties.
It's a mixed breed.
It's a mixed breed that they follow. So when they come out, and what has taken me to a head is the Mbaka saga. I have watched the video again and again, and I wonder what country will allow such a thing. You parade government officials, and right there in the church, you push them to make pledges. You push them to pledge what they will bring from the public till to come and use in the church. It's wrong. When I was growing up, I asked the question, why this issue of churches don't pay tax? And I got replies, and I was happy about it. But I started asking again when I saw churches doing big businesses, huge businesses. In very many of the cases, the businesses that the church does becomes even bigger than the church itself. That's one. The manner in which government has given the impression that once you are a religious leader, you have a lot of followership, you become bigger than the system. You may even become someone above the law. It's wrong. However, I do believe that a religious leader has rights, like every other Nigerian, to hold a political belief. But it's a private belief.
That you don't superimpose.
You don't superimpose on anyone, on the system. Because On the long run, if we now have, and the churches don't seem to have realized that, if we now have Church A going in one direction of the political divide, Church B going in another direction, Church C going in another, and these are large churches, the churches are courting disaster because you now have so much conflict within the church itself that they will not be able to contend with. That's where they are going. So I think that if the church feels very strongly about the direction in which politics is going in the country, there's a very mature and organized way of doing it. Let the church leaders appeal to their people to go and register. Let them appeal to their people to even seek elective office. Let a good person go there. If you say you have them in the congregation, let them seek elective office and also campaign the way others are campaigning. But if the church cannot set a standard where politics is not monetized, then the church has failed. Because what Obaka did in that video amounted to calling on public officers to go steal. You parade them and start telling them, tell us what you are bringing, tell us how much you are bringing, tell us what you want to do. And these people are public officials.
He didn't tell anybody to steal.
No, sir.
You have a right to say, I mean, take for example, former Governor Peter Obi.
Yes.
Blatantly refused to say something,
yes,
to say anything.
And what,
irrespective of
and do you know the statement Obaka made?
Yes, I read
which I don't want to say openly here.
I read it. I read that online.
Very terrible statement.
Yes.
The manner in which we are going will lead to this. But let me ask, in response to your statement, yes, that you asked them to go and steal.
Yes.
How many persons paraded there were not public officers? He hasn't seen teachers to parade. He hasn't seen vulcanizers to parade. He hasn't seen carpenters to parade. He didn't see ordinary persons, in quote, to parade. How come the people who are paraded are being urged to go and bring, are people we have sent into public offices to go and use our own resources? In any case, when a public official stands up to say, I will bring 10 million, has the man of God asked himself, what the cumulative salaries
that will bring 10 million?
That will bring, how many years does this public official remember that he can just plug 10 million from somewhere and throw at you? If a public official comes before the congregation and says, I will build a hall for this church, and that hall is likely to cost 15 million, they don't ask where the money is coming from. So instead of the church preaching sobriety, preaching modesty, preaching integrity, what we find, and it's not all the churches, I like to make that clear, we are pointing at those that we have seen do what they do, recorded in videos. Yeah. What they are doing is that they are promoting gangsterism. They are promoting thievery. Because when you put a public official on display and begin to force him to say what he will say, he said, talk on behalf of your master. He's not here now asking what he wants to do. That is nauseating.
But doesn't that individual have the right to refuse to say anything?
He wants votes, sir. The one who took the risk now didn't say anything. We saw the thunder and brimstone that was rained on them. And you see, the power of the altar is such that as he made that statement, I'm sure Peter Obi must have caught cold. But could he have dragged the man to say that thing you said is very wrong? He couldn't have done that. No. He was concerned and sentenced to stay there and listen to all that would be said. I heard, I haven't read the video, I haven't seen the video that Mbaka came out again to apologize and all of that. But that's crying over spirit milk. He has sent a very dangerous message and is using his position there to do all of this. It's wrong. And I think they need to be called to order. Ultimately, you are likely to ask the question, who calls them to order? We already have a system where government says we don't touch it, it's religion, it's guaranteed by the Constitution and all of that. This is
beyond, outside our domain, so to speak.
I'll tell you. Every congregation has people from all walks of life, from all sectors. The most intelligent, the least intelligent, the not very intelligent, the rich, the poor, not so rich, the not so poor, they are all there. I cannot sit in a congregation and lose my head. That's not religion. That's not faith. I'm not supposed to close my eyes when I'm in church. I'm not supposed to close my ears. I am supposed to, I have gone to congregations where Men of God speak for hours. They don't refer to the Bible once. What am I doing there? When we know that in the early church, what was commended by Paul was that the people having listened, they went back to consult the word. You have the Bible. The people in the congregations need to start asking themselves whether this man, this thing he comes to do again and again, is it founded in scripture?
Or it's just from his own?
Or is self? Has he imposed self on the word of God? Are these the precepts of God, or these are just his own? So we now have infant terribles. We have superstars, mega stars, who prance on the altar. And what they lay claim to is thousands of members. And that's what politicians fear. And that's what they are cutting.
Okay, just before we call it a wrap on the discussion segment of TMI, this issue came out, and it was like, it was something that was going to go away. And then before the video started trending online, I understand that today, the socio-economic rights, SERAP, has already stepped in and sued President Buhari to court for not ordering the prosecution of the Kano State governor over bribery allegations.
I must tell you, I voted Muhammadu Buhari. I've always said it here, because for me, we were at a point in this country when we needed to have somebody who had discipline, who had commitment, and who had a pedigree to fight corruption. Because at the center of all of these problems that we have as a nation is corruption. The tendency for people to bend the rule. The tendency for people to see what is right and do what is wrong. We only extend it to people carrying money, but at the root of it is where people see the truth. They say lies. They know what is to be done. They do the wrong thing. The Bible says, he that knoweth what is right and doeth it not, the same committed a sin. So that's the reason I gave my vote to Muhammadu Buhari. And I have said here on several programs and elsewhere that for me, this present manner of fighting corruption is not what I voted for. I don't know what is to come, but I feel that the president can do better in his fight against corruption. The Ganduje situation is one. There have been several, the grass cutting incidents and all of that. The Ganduje situation is mind-blowing. First, we saw the video with bunches of dollars being put into this and all of that. Some of us still did not buy it because we felt that, well, it could have been something else. And they first came out to say it was a contract signing and all of that, or something. But when the journalists who did that actually went ahead to present their evidence, appeared before the committee, we now knew that this matter wasn't going to die until it was taken seriously. And then the video began to go viral. They started adding and adding and adding to it. And there is an EFCC. There is an ICPC. Agreed, the governor has immunity.
I was going to ask the question.
Yes, the governor has immunity. But does that also prevent the ICPC and EFCC from finding out the veracity of that video? That they have not done. Because he has immunity only till May. And after May,
I like the way you said it.
only till May.
He has immunity only till May.
Only till May. So the fact that EFCC, ICPC, even the police have tended to just stay away, the impression they are giving is that there's a force somewhere that has told them to stay away. I urge Nigerians not to relent, because by May, I don't know how many, whether it's in the second term or first term, he may get the second term, it still doesn't matter. He can do another 4 years, but it won't go away because the facts are there. As to whether SERAP is likely to succeed in that suit, I don't know. They're asking for another mandamus to compel the president to ask the FCC to do the right thing. We will watch as Nigerians, but let everyone know that whatever it is you have done, a time will come when there will be a Pharaoh that does not know Joseph, and you will account to the public. It's not going to go away. It was too brazen, and I think that Nigeria ought to have used that as a basis
but they might have
to
said
send
that
a
he's
clear
not the
message.
person in the video.
But that is not. It's all right. When the investigation when the investigation starts and starts very seriously, experts will come to show whether he is the one in the video or not.
All right, thank you very much, Comrade Austin Usakwe. It's always a delight to have you here with some of the views and thoughts that you have expressed, which are personally yours.
Yes.
Yeah, they are yours, and we truly appreciate them. But again, it's our job to ensure that we'll bring the issues to bear, bring them to the front burner, to help you form the right opinion and make the right decision. Well, that's our job, and that's how we do it, in line with the rules and regulations, the ethics and the ethos of the job. Comrade, many thanks again for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, my pleasure.
It's the TMI Monday. We'll take a couple of promos. We'll have the news by 9:30, and then we'll be talking with Comrade Emerson, who is in Abuja at the National Sports Festival, to tell us, give us an update on what's happening there. That will be on Breakfast Sports segment on the show. Don't go away.